What's going on everyone? My name is Duman and welcome back to another video. Today's video is going to be about the analysis of the League Cup game between Tottenham versus Chelsea FC. Chelsea lined up in their normal 4-3-3 formation, but they shifted to 4-4-2 without possession. Tottenham started the game in a 4-3-1-2 formation with a 4-man diamond in the middle, and they also shifted to 4-4-2 without possession. The start of the game was very intense, as both the teams tried to show their attacking intentions right from the kickoff. Both the teams tried to press each other high up the pitch in an effort to win possession in dangerous areas. So as we can see in this diagram, Spurs are pushing men forward to press Chelsea high up the pitch. Here again, they have created the overload and they are trying to block the passing lanes of the man in possession by creating an overload of 5v3. Same thing here again, overloads with the purpose of blocking the passing lanes. But Spurs were not the only ones who used high pressing. Chelsea also tried to stop Tottenham's build-up with their high press. So as we can see here, Chelsea are also pushing men forward to press Tottenham. Spurs' game plan in the first half was very simple. They invited Chelsea to move up to press them high up the pitch, which forced Chelsea's defensive line to also push up. So as we can see in this animation, as soon as Chelsea's offensive line moves up to press Tottenham, their defensive line is also pushing up to support the high press, and as a result, big space is created behind the defensive line. Tottenham playing up from the back, and they are inviting Chelsea to move up and press, which will open up the space behind Chelsea's defensive line. Chelsea's very high defensive line, as we can see in this image. So as soon as Chelsea's defensive line pushed up to support the high press, space was created behind Chelsea's high line, and Tottenham tried to exploit that space by playing first-time long balls behind Chelsea's defensive line for Son and Kane. Spurs playing up from the back, and they are asking Chelsea to move up and press. They force Chelsea to move up and press, and as soon as the defensive line pushed up, Trippier quickly launches a long ball behind Chelsea's high line. Trippier's long ball behind the Chelsea line for Son, just like I showed you in the animation. Same exact thing here as well. So many Chelsea players have pushed forward, and Ali quickly plays a long ball behind Chelsea's high line for Son. Ali's pass behind Chelsea's high line, and Chelsea are now in trouble with 2v2 at the back. And this is exactly how Spurs won the penalty as well. Again, Chelsea's high line and Spurs using the same approach, playing a long ball behind Chelsea's high line. I won't be going into the details of the VAR decision here because my job is to only explain you the tactical approaches of the two teams, so I'm not going to talk about the decision. So this was Tottenham's first attacking strategy. Another tactic that Spurs often used was the use of their fullbacks to create spaces for their midfielders. With possession, Spurs often shifted to back 3, with wings dropping back in the defensive line. So as we can see in this animation, with possession, wings is dropping back in the defensive line and making it back 3, while Rose and Trippier are pushing forward, and Eriksen and Sissoko are playing in between the lines. With possession, Spurs shifted to back 3, which allowed their fullbacks to push forward. And from that position, their fullbacks often dropped back and pulled Chelsea's fullbacks out of their positions to create spaces for the midfield runners. Spurs shifting to back 3 with possession, with wings dropping in the defensive line. They have shifted to back 3, and that has allowed their fullbacks to push forward. Sissoko's pass to Trippier, which forced Alonso to move out and cover Trippier. Alonso moves out to cover Trippier, and as soon as Alonso moves out, space is created behind him for Sissoko's run. Same exact thing here as well. Alonso again moved out, and Sissoko again makes the same run behind Alonso. And Rose was doing the same thing on the other end. Azpilicueta taken out by Danny Rose, and again it's Sissoko who makes the run behind the fullback. Sissoko receives the ball behind the fullback and then a cutback, and we all know Chelsea often struggle at cutbacks. Just look at the space for Eriksen right in front of the Chelsea defense. Sissoko's final pass was slightly behind Eriksen, otherwise Eriksen would have had a clear shot at the Chelsea goal. So this was all about Spurs and how they attacked Chelsea. Now let's talk about Chelsea and see how they came back so strongly in the second half. Hazard was playing as a false nine, and he often made himself available by making good runs behind Spurs' high defensive line. Hazard made some good runs, but Chelsea often struggled to provide him the first-time pass behind Spurs' line to truly test their defense. Big gap between the two Spurs centre-backs, and Hazard makes a very well-timed run. All he needed was either a through ball or a long ball behind the line. Hazard makes a very good run but never gets the first-time pass, and that was mostly the story for him at the number 9 position. I explained to you at the start of this video that Spurs were not using man-oriented pressing. They mostly tried to create overloads in the zone of possession and tried to block the passing lanes of the man in possession. So as we can see in this animation, Spurs are trying to create overloads in the zone of possession, and that has created spaces on the other side of the pitch. And if Chelsea can shift the play from one side to the other side, they can catch Spurs. Chelsea trying to play it from the back, and Spurs are looking to block them with an overload of 7 players. Willian manages to break the overload, and the space is now wide open for Chelsea on the wide side. So as we can see in this image, 6 of Spurs players had created the overload on the left side, and now Chelsea have so much space on the right side to attack. Chelsea were often able to break Spurs' overload, which allowed them spaces to attack. As the game progressed, Spurs started to draw very deep in their own half, and that's when things started to get difficult for Chelsea. A false nine operates the best when the distance between the opposition lines is big. But a false nine can't do anything when the distance in between the opposition defense is very narrow. So as we can see in this image, Spurs are sitting very deep in a low block defensive shape, and the distance between the lines is very narrow. So when the distance in between the defensive line and the midfield line is very narrow, there is no space behind the defensive line to make runs. And similarly, when the distance in between the defensive and midfield line is very narrow, a false nine can't drop back to receive the ball in between the lines, because as soon as he receives the ball, he is quickly pressed from all directions. And these are the situations where you need a big, strong target man in the opposition box. Chelsea were playing without a strong target man, and thus Spurs kept a very narrow defensive shape. Tottenham allowed spaces on the wide areas because they knew that Chelsea won't be able to use the wide spaces without a proper striker. So as we can see in this image, Spurs are allowing spaces on both wide areas because Chelsea don't have a target man in the box. Giroud was brought on during the last 10 to 15 minutes, but Spurs were able to defend their lead. The tie is still in the balance despite Spurs' 1-0 lead. Chelsea's second half performance must have given them great boost. So what is your prediction? Who do you think will go to the final? Thank you so much guys for watching the video. Please don't forget to like and subscribe.